Solomon Iron Nation, 1815 to 1894. Solomon Iron Nation, born in 1815 in what is now South Dakota, was the last head chief of the Lower Brule Lakota. A wise and respected leader, he guided his people through decades of upheaval as their traditional lands came under pressure from white settlers and the expanding United States. Iron Nation signed several major treaties with the U.S. government, including the Fort Laramie Treaties of 1851 and 1868, and the Fort Sully Treaty of 1865, which established the Lower Brule Reservation. He believed these agreements could protect his people's future while maintaining peace, though they often came with painful compromises. Throughout his life, Iron Nation sought to balance tradition and change. He encouraged farming and education for his tribe, seeing them as ways to ensure survival in a rapidly changing world. Yet he never abandoned Lakota values of unity, respect, and spiritual strength. When the Teller Commission tried to buy the Lower Brule lands in 1882, Iron Nation stood firm, refusing to give up his people's home. His leadership preserved the tribe's sovereignty and identity. Chief Iron Nation died in 1894 and was buried near Owakama, South Dakota. Iron Nation was inducted into the South Dakota Hall of Fame in 2006, and in 2014, his burial site was listed on the South Dakota State and the National Registers of Historic Places. Red Cloud, circa 1822 to 1909. Red Cloud, born around 1822 along Blue Creek in what is now Nebraska, rose to become one of the greatest chiefs of the Oglala Lakota. From a young age, he proved himself a brave and capable warrior, defending Lakota lands alongside their Cheyenne and Arapaho allies. In the 1860s, when gold was discovered in Montana, settlers began traveling a new route called the Bozeman Trail, which cut through sacred native hunting grounds. Red Cloud refused to let this trespass continue. He led his people in what became known as Red Cloud's War, the only war ever won by Native Americans against the United States Army. In December 1866, his warriors, alongside Crazy Horse, destroyed a U.S. detachment in the Battle of the 100 in the Hand, or Fetterman Fight. The victory forced the U.S. to abandon its forts and led to the 1868 Treaty of Fort Laramie, securing Lakota control of their lands. In later years, Red Cloud chose diplomacy, working tirelessly to protect his people from corruption and loss of land. He moved with his band to the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota, where he continued to speak for Native rights until his death on December 10, 1909. Spotted Tail, circa 1823 to 1881. Spotted Tail, born around 1823 near Fort Laramie in present-day Wyoming, rose from humble beginnings to become chief of the Brule Lakota and later, briefly, leader of the Oglala Sioux. Known for his courage and wisdom, he earned his position not by birthright, but by bravery in battle and deep concern for his people's future. In 1855, after an attack on U.S. troops, Spotted Tail surrendered himself to prevent punishment of his tribe. He spent 2 years in prison, returning home as a hero. His experience taught him the cost of conflict and the need for diplomacy in a changing world. Unlike Red Cloud, Spotted Tail sought peaceful coexistence with the United States. He signed the 1868 Treaty of Fort Laramie, accepting reservation life in South Dakota and attempting to secure fair treatment for his people. When gold was discovered in the Black Hills, he urged negotiation rather than war, though the U.S. ignored his calls for justice. He kept his warriors out of the Great Sioux War and later helped persuade Crazy Horse to surrender, hoping to protect his tribe from further bloodshed. In 1881, Spotted Tail was tragically killed by another tribesman, Crow Dog. Yet his legacy endures as that of a leader who sought peace when war seemed inevitable. American Horse, circa 1840 to 1908. American Horse was born in 1840 near Bear Butte, South Dakota. Though the youngest in a large family, he was raised to be a spokesman for his people. Known for his intelligence and courage, he became leader of the True Oglala Band and served as a tribal historian, preserving generations of Lakota memory through his winter count. As a young man, American Horse gained fame as a fearless warrior. His name, Milahanska Tasunka Iku, or He Takes the Long Knife's Horse, honored his bravery in seizing cavalry horses from U.S. soldiers. During Red Cloud's war, he was one of the decoys who helped lure Captain Fetterman's troops into an ambush, securing a rare native victory over the U.S. Army. But in time, his greatest strength became not in war, but in peace. As white encroachment and the Black Hills gold rush threatened Lakota lands, American Horse urged diplomacy, believing survival depended on adaptation and unity. He traveled to Washington, D.C., spoke for peace, and often stood between violence and disaster, calming conflicts and saving lives with his words. Baptized into the Episcopal faith as Felix, he continued to guide his people through the reservation era, blending courage with compassion. Chief American Horse died in 1908 at Pine Ridge, remembered as both a warrior and a peacemaker, a leader whose wisdom carried the Lakota through their hardest transition. Tasunka Kokipapi, circa 1830 to 1893. Born around 1830 into a distinguished Oglala Lakota family, Tasunka Kokipapi, known to history as young man afraid of his horse, inherited a proud lineage of leaders. His name, often mistranslated, truly meant "they fear his horse," a tribute to a warrior so formidable that even his enemies trembled at the sight of his mount. As a young man, he rose to prominence during the wars that shaped Lakota destiny. After the Sand Creek Massacre in 1864, he led warriors in retaliatory raids along the South Platte and fought with distinction in Red Cloud's war, including the Fetterman Fight and the Wagon Box Battle. In 1868, he was chosen as one of the 4 shirt wearers, honored leaders and protectors of the people, alongside American Horse, Crazy Horse, and Sword. When peace came, young man afraid of his horse turned his courage toward diplomacy. He signed the Treaty of Fort Laramie, led his band to the Red Cloud Agency, and tirelessly advocated for his people's rights, traveling to Washington, D.C., and serving as president of the Pine Ridge Council. Though he worked with U.S. officials, he remained steadfastly Lakota, opposing the loss of their lands and the forced push toward farming. In 1891, his leadership helped prevent further bloodshed after the Wounded Knee Massacre. 2 years later, while visiting the Crow Nation, the great chief died suddenly, remembered as both a warrior and a statesman whose calm strength preserved his people through their hardest trials. Touch the Clouds, circa 1837 to 1905. Born between 1837 and 1839, Touch the Clouds was the youngest son of the great Minneconjou Lakota leader Lone Horn, chief of the Wakpokinyan band. Towering in stature, over 6 feet 9 inches tall, he embodied both physical strength and calm dignity. By his 30s, Touch the Clouds was a respected warrior and head of a tribal society known for his courage and wisdom. During the Great Sioux War of 1876 to 77, he sought peace, urging restraint even after the Battle of the Little Bighorn. When the U.S. Army moved to disarm the Lakota, he led his people away, but later chose surrender over endless war. In April 1877, he laid down his rifle before General Crook, declaring, "I lay down this gun as a token of submission." Serving as first sergeant of the Indian Scouts, Touch the Clouds stood beside his friend Crazy Horse as he died. Later, he traveled to Washington, D.C. as a Lakota delegate, advocating peace and dignity for his nation. Returning to the Cheyenne River Reservation, he was confirmed as a shirt wearer, a protector and leader. Until his death in 1905, Touch the Clouds worked tirelessly for education, unity, and the survival of his people, bridging the world of the buffalo with the new world that followed. Little Wound, circa 1835 to 1999. Little Wound was a respected Oglala Lakota chief and leader of the Kurian branch of the Kuyuksa, Bear People band. He was born around 1835 near Fort Laramie, Wyoming Territory, during a time when the Lakota were facing growing pressure from westward expansion. After the death of his brother Bull Bear II in 1865, Little Wound became head of his people, guiding them through war, displacement, and cultural upheaval. His father, Chief Old Bull Bear, led the Eastern Oglala, Kiyaska, from 1834 to 1841 until he was killed by Red Cloud near Fort Laramie. His grandfather was Stone Chief, and his son, George Little Wound, later carried forward his legacy as an advocate for education and Lakota sovereignty. As a warrior, Little Wound fought in the Battle of Massacre Canyon in 1873, one of the last intertribal battles between the Pawnee and Sioux. In 1877, he was promoted to First Sergeant in Company B in the Indian Scouts at the Red Cloud Agency, serving with chiefs such as Red Cloud, American Horse, and Young Man Afraid of His Horses. That same year, he traveled to Washington, D.C. as a delegate to advocate for the rights of the Lakota people. Little Wound died in the winter of 1899 at Pine Ridge Reservation, South Dakota. He was remembered as a brave leader and compassionate man, whose legacy lived on through his son, George Little Wound, who helped establish Little Wound School to preserve Lakota culture and language. Spotted Elk, circa 1826 to 1890. Spotted Elk was a respected chief of the Miniconjou Lakota Sioux, known for his diplomacy, leadership, and peaceful nature. Born around 1826 near the Cheyenne River in present-day South Dakota, he was the son of Chief Lonehorn and became leader of his band after his father's death in 1877. Unlike many war chiefs, Spotted Elk was recognized as a peacemaker and skilled negotiator, often sought to resolve disputes among Lakota bands. Alongside his brother Touch the Clouds, he allied with Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse during the 1870s resistance to U.S. expansion, though he avoided direct battle during the Great Sioux War of 1876-77. After the war, he settled his people on the Cheyenne River Reservation, encouraging adaptation through farming and education while maintaining Lakota traditions. In 1890, amid poverty and broken government promises, Spotted Elk's band embraced the ghost dance religion, a peaceful spiritual movement promising renewal for Native peoples. Following the killing of Sitting Bull, Spotted Elk led his band toward Pine Ridge Reservation, seeking refuge with Chief Red Cloud, but he fell ill with pneumonia and surrendered peacefully to the U.S. Army. On December 29, 1980, while camped under guard at Wounded Knee Creek, soldiers of the 7th Cavalry opened fire, killing Spotted Elk and more than 250 Lakota men, women, and children in what became known as the Wounded Knee Massacre. Standing Bear, circa 1829 to 1908. Standing Bear was born May 18, 1929, along the Niobrara River in Nebraska. He belonged to the Ponca, who farmed maize and hunted bison. His childhood was shaped by raids from the Brule and Oglala Lakota, forcing the Ponca to rely more on agriculture. In youth, the tribe split into two villages, Hooptha and Wine-Chud, where Standing Bear learned hunting, fishing, and leadership. By the 1850s, settlement and U.S. government pressure forced the Ponca to cede land. Standing Bear married Zazette Primo and had children. In 1877, he and other Ponca leaders were moved to Indian Territory. Poor conditions, famine, and disease killed nearly a third of the tribe, including his son Bear Shield. Standing Bear traveled north to bury his son in the Niobrara Valley. Standing Bear's fight for justice culminated in United States ex rel. Standing Bear v. Crook in 1879. Arrested for leaving Indian Territory, he declared, "That hand is not the color of yours. God made me, and I am a man." The court ruled that Native Americans are persons under U.S. law. Afterward, he toured the eastern United States advocating for Native rights. Returning to Niobrara, he helped resettle the Ponca and farmed. In 1893, he joined Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. Standing Bear died in 1908 of oral cancer and was buried overlooking his birthplace, leaving a legacy as a leader and advocate for Native American justice. Flying Hawk, 1854 to 1931. Flying Hawk, born about 1854 near Rapid Creek in Lakota Territory, was an Oglala Lakota warrior, historian, and statesman who lived through the great clashes of the plains and then worked to preserve his people's memory and dignity. He fought in Red Cloud's War and the Great Sioux War, including the Battle of the Little Bighorn, stood by Crazy Horse in the hard years that followed, and survived the Wounded Knee era. After the wars, Flying Hawk became a respected elder and keeper of Lakota history, telling stories, correcting official accounts, and serving as an interpreter of his people's experience for outsiders. To support his family and share Lakota culture, he later joined Wild West shows, touring with Buffalo Bill and other troops across the United States and Europe. These performances gave him a platform, but also reflected the painful tensions of showing a living people as spectacle. Known for clear memory and outspoken speeches, Flying Hawk contributed interviews and reminiscences that historians and ethnographers later used to reconstruct Sioux perspectives on treaty-making, war, and loss. He died on December 24, 1931, in Pine Ridge, South Dakota, leaving a legacy as both a veteran of the Plains Wars and a guardian of Oglala history. Thanks for watching till the end. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe my channel. It really motivates me to keep creating more content.